Hello, and thank you for attending today's presentation, RDX Cloud Financial Advisor Introduction and Demo. I am Kelly Riedel, Senior Marketing Manager at RDX and the webinar's organizer. Today, your host and RDX Cloud Platform Services team, Troy Mitchell and Allen Holmes, will be giving you a sneak peek into this new and innovative offering. They'll begin with an overview of the benefits cloud systems provide, along with tips to help manage cloud expenses. They'll then go into a demo of Cloud Financial Advisor's cost allocation, reporting, and billing features to showcase how this offering helps organizations easily scale and manage their cloud subscriptions. To prevent background noise, all attendees will be muted throughout the presentation. If you have a question, please use the Q&A panel on your attendee dashboard. I will bundle all questions up and address them during our Q&A session at the end of the webinar. All attendees will also be receiving a copy of the recording and slides following the webinar. So without further delay, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Alan and Troy.
Thank you, Kelly. One of the biggest challenges with moving to the cloud is tracking and managing cloud costs. Cloud consumption is accelerating as enterprise workloads migrate to the cloud. According to a recent survey from Logic Monitor, they are predicting 83% of enterprise workloads will be in the cloud by 2020. Approximately 50% is targeted for the public cloud, the remaining split between private and hybrid. What's the rush to the cloud all about? It's pretty simple. The cloud materially changes companies. The cloud eliminates data center costs. No more technology refreshes, no more 3 to 5 year depreciation cycles, and no more CapEx. The cloud delivers the latest CPU, memory, and storage options courtesy of the cloud's CapEx. The cloud provides consumption-based billing. You only have to focus on operating expenses. The cloud offers immediate flexibility and agility, delivers instant responses to market changes, and allows companies to take advantage of new opportunities. The cloud improves competitiveness. Digital transformations have changed the way companies collaborate. Companies with improved collaboration experience, an increase in employee productivity, higher customer satisfaction, richer partner engagements, and time to market advantages. The cloud is foundational for a company's digital transformation. Companies are striving to achieve these results, but there can be cloud challenges. First, the reality is cloud bills are complicated. Sorting through line after line of VMs, storage, networking, and associated services is time-consuming and difficult to draw any actionable conclusions. Second, the cloud computing brought a consumer level of simplicity to deploying enterprise-ready infrastructure. Users provisioned infrastructure for development and testing, and unfortunately, once the project was complete, many users never deprovisioned the infrastructure. What goes up must come down. The consumption meter is always running. And finally, the cloud disrupted previous on-premise IT policies. The simplicity of deploying cloud infrastructure transferred control to the users. This change gave birth to business groups building shadow IT deployments. Having control of their applications translated into lower costs. But the standard IT services were still running. Net result was overall company infrastructure sprawl and lots of unforecasted costs. What can you do? Are there any quick fixes? Let me offer a few simple but effective tips. First, take time to understand your workloads. Have an assessment of your current environment and workloads. Will provide benchmarks. Once you have the data, you can determine a sizing range for the cloud infrastructure. Once you have migrated, you can right size as necessary. With the cloud infrastructure target determined, you can forecast costs and set an appropriate cloud operating budget. Budget fine-tuning will follow any infrastructure right sizing. 2, there are many cloud consumption tools and services designed to help users simplify the complicated cloud bill. Find a service that meets your needs. My preference is a standalone service that can provide a single dashboard for all of my company's public cloud consumption. Look for a service that tracks tags for accountability and generates line item detailed reports. Visibility is required to understanding what projects, departments, or abandoned infrastructure is causing the cost overage. Tagging is key. Tagging VMs, storage, networking within your deployments is critical to tracking asset consumption. A tagging policy should outline the important fields to track, such as company, department, project, and user. Items that are not tagged can be sorted for future analysis. Tagging simplifies determining user or project level consumption and associated costs. 4, a usage policy establishes who, what, when within the cloud. establishes security standards, sets user access privileges, determines spending limits, documents tagging requirements. This step is critical to controlling cloud spend. And finally, automation performed hundreds of critical steps to deploying cloud infrastructure. In minutes, automation delivers consistent, policy-driven infrastructure ready for use, controls security and access, manages user privileges, and enforces spending limits. Automation executes the usage policy. Planning increases the odds of a successful cloud migration. Document a standard use policy and leverage automation. Proactive management of costs is critical. Engage a cloud-ready partner. Find one capable of migration, cloud management, and cloud billing support. Let us help make moving to the cloud synonymous with reducing costs. Let me now ask Troy to preview our cloud financial advisor. Troy, please take it away.
Thank you, Alan. That was very insightful, and I'm sure any one of our attendees who has faced the challenge of trying to understand their cloud bill can appreciate some of the best practices you just shared. You know, it also helps that we can speak from experience. Having spent over 8 years managing our own multi-DBaaS platform, we know how challenging it can be to control costs. The popular proverb, necessity is the mother of invention, could not be more relevant, and I'm excited to provide a preview of our new Cloud Financial Advisor. Moving forward, I'll simply refer to it as CFA. What I'm about to share is an intentionally simple interface that enables a company to quickly understand, monitor, manage, and allocate their multi-cloud costs. But don't let the simple interface fool you. Behind it is a robust platform that aggressively crawls through cloud accounts to automatically detect and aggregate data from hundreds of thousands of cloud objects throughout the world. What's more is that the data is refreshed every 60 seconds for real-time analysis and cost management. There are 3 primary sources of information and interaction. 1, a CFA web-based portal. 2, CFA statements. And 3, CFA data export. The CFA web-based portal provides a real-time, multi-cloud information source that is refreshed and aggregated every 60 seconds to deliver graphical representation of consumption and spending trends. The portal also provides all of the necessary account management options. The CFA statements provide up-to-the-minute detail of detected cloud objects such as compute and storage in one or more cloud subscriptions. This object-level detail can be filtered to formulate reports for the purpose of understanding, managing, and billing back costs associated with business groups, departments, projects, people, or any other custom tag. And finally, the CFA data export delivers every detail of the CFA statement in a CSV file that can be used with third-party tools for external analysis, reporting, and dashboards. So let's start with the CFA web-based portal. The portal is designed to provide high-level usage trends through easy-to-read graphs and charts. At the top of the page is a trend line showing current spend per minute along with the projected spend for the current month. This is a simple calculation, excuse me. This is a simple calculation of what you've spent month to date with the addition of your current spend per minute for the remaining minutes in the month. As you can see, our current spend is about 0.0225 cents per minute, with a projected monthly spend of $971.70. The graph then shows the per minute cost trend for all categories over the last 7 days. In our case, we have incurred cost for virtual machines, block storage, bandwidth, and object storage. Keep in mind that if this were a production environment with steady state workloads, these trend lines would be more pronounced and you'd quickly see the variance resulting from the starting and stopping of services during the displayed time frame. The donut graph titled Current Usage by Type breaks down your current usage by object type so that you can easily assess what is driving the majority of your cloud spend. In our case, you can see that roughly 88% of our spend is on compute, while about 9.7% is on block storage and about 1.5% on other cloud objects. I don't know about you, but when I start to see these types of percentages and the cost being consumed by different objects, I immediately begin to wonder who or what is driving this expenditure. We'll get to that when we shift over to our statement and explore the underlying detail. The graph to the right, titled Cost History, shows the last 6 months of spending, along with a year-on-year comparison for each month. This enables you to understand your company's current spending trend while also benchmarking each month against that same month in the prior year. Knowing the growth of your business and its relative dependence on cloud infrastructure will help you assess whether you are making optimal use of your cloud resources. The pie chart titled Current Quota Usage by Region provides a totally different view of your cloud spend as it breaks out current spend by both cloud and region. The graph shows that we're running services in both AWS and in Azure, as you can see here, Azure US East, and that we're incurring costs in both the US and Europe. Once again, we'll soon use our statements view to dive into the details of this spending to better understand cost responsibility and allocation in each of these clouds and each of these regions. The last pie chart, titled Total Quota Consumption, shows every account can be set up with a defined spending limit that may, for example, be matched to your enterprise agreement with the cloud provider or any other desired consumption limit. In this case, we have a total consumption assigned of $60,000. And to date, month to date, we have spent very little of that as the month of April just began. But you'll see that as a result, $59,964 remains to be spent this month. Remember, however, to compare your projected spend against your budget, as it's a good indicator of whether your current spend, if continued, will result in a final spend below or above budget. And if you scroll back up, you will find your projected spend, in our case, $1,059, projected for the month. So I would look at that and compare to what's left for the month and know whether or not I have enough cap room, if you will, or budget available. At the bottom of this page are the user management tabs. As this is a preview of the CFA solution, there will likely be some changes made to these tabs and their contents. However, several of them are very important to CFA, and I'll touch on those now. General information is simply where you'll log in to manage your user account information, including password, email, and phone. Company information is used for statements and billing purposes. And the user tabs enables the top-level account owner to authorize others in the organization to access the web-based portal, statements, and data export functions. This add user function is quite simple to use, and you can see by clicking on this that I'd be able to enter someone's first and last name, their email address, assign a role depending on how they were using the system, assign a usage quota to that individual, and a cost center ID. Once I do that, I would send them the invitation, and they would, of course, then be able to access the system and view both those same screens that I am seeing now, as well as be managed to their user quota. Cloud connections is where you'll establish a connection to one or more of your cloud accounts. Adding a connection is quite simple and requires only a few steps. So you basically click on this and decide which cloud you wanted to subscribe to or to give access to. You would choose what service you're wanting to connect to that account, in this case, Cloud Financial Services, and then you would enter a name for that particular connection. In this case, we'll say next. It'll then ask you for the necessary requirements in order to connect to that cloud. In this case, for Azure, the subscription ID, a client ID, an access key, and a tenant ID. And once those values are input, you would simply save the connection, and CFA would immediately begin crawling through that account, identifying all of the objects currently in inventory for which you are incurring cost. And then finally, push notifications. Push notifications are a way for you to be notified of events that matter to you. So in the case of CFA, you might want to know, for example, how you're performing to budget. And once you hit a certain threshold, say 85% of that budget, you or your manager may want to receive that type of an alert. Push notifications is the vehicle for performing such an action. And it's a very simple interface where you can go down and click on the particular particular alert or notification that you'd like to receive. You would then configure this with email or JSON. JSON could be used for third-party services like ServiceNow, where you may want to create a support ticket to respond to an incident. But entering a person's email, their email address, and then creating that push notification is all it takes. And finally, the Statements tab. I've referenced this earlier in the demo, but this is a very important function in the system. This is where we'll be able to drill into any and all detail, including cost, that is being collected from your cloud accounts. The statements are reset each month and remain open until month end. Let's start by clicking on last month's statement. So you can see that we just closed out April 1st, and the amount for that statement period was $34,560. We've already begun accruing costs for the May 1st time period for the month of May. But let's click on this one here. So what this is going to do now is immediately open a new tab in your browser and begin retrieving current inventory to generate a month-to-date summary of expenditures. This usually takes about 30 seconds to populate, ran quite quickly today, but does show, in this case, nearly 2,000 objects that are being scanned in our account across AWS and Azure in the US and Europe. Across the top of the statement is some general information about your company, along with some payment information, and an automatically generated invoice number or statement number. If you scroll down a little, you'll see that this is a very long report listing every object that we've been scanning. And as I look at a few of these, you can look at the type of object. In this case, we've got block storage. We have a virtual machine. So there's a lot of different types of objects in here. But let me start by just going across the top here and explaining what we have. This shows the last updated date for that particular object in terms of cost accrual. So this will update periodically through the month as those costs accrue. The product code is a concatenation of items from the cloud provider. So you can see here that this is AWS. It's showing EBS or Elastic Block Storage. It's showing the region that the item is procured in, and GP2, which is a little more specific in terms of general purpose SSD. We then add to it in the description kind of the unit of measure for which cost is being accrued. In this case, gigabytes per minute. In other cases, it might actually be an instance per minute if it were, for example, a VM. The object type is a classification into which we group the different objects for purpose of aggregation and representation in the graphs. An object type here is block storage, virtual machine. If I scroll down, we'll see some others in a moment. The resource is really the resource name associated with that particular object in the cloud as well. So you have that level of detail to be able to do your own research through your cloud subscription if you want to look up certain objects and discover more about them. And then, of course, the unit price, which is associated with the resource being procured, and then the quantity that it uses to multiply for a subtotal cost. If I scroll down, as an example, though, you'll see block storage, virtual machine here. We'll look at a few others as they come up. I think we got bandwidth. So here's an example of where we have egress bandwidth consumption as well, which, this is another example of cost accrual that often gets lost. And I think what becomes very valuable here is that we're able to then assign tags, both through a platform, or you through your cloud provider, you can go in and actually tag different resources and objects such that those tags appear in this report. And once they are tagged, now you can start doing a lot of very powerful things with them. If I scroll to the very bottom of the report, you'll actually see a subtotal. Let me grab over to the far right and scroll down fast. And you'll see that month to date, we've accrued $326 of cost. Okay, so again, this is a real-time cost accrual system that's updated every 60 seconds. But what about breaking down cost by business group, department, or project? To do this, we'll make use of a great filtering feature. And for the purpose of our demo, I've created a lot of data stores and tagged all of the associated cloud objects with some common tags. For example, I've used the company name Widget World. Let's generate a report showing all of these costs that have accrued for this company this month. And so I can scroll to the top and you'll see that I'm going to show you two different ways of filtering. One is through a filtering tool that is integrated with the platform. And in this case, I have a tag for company. And that value is Widget World. And I'll go ahead and choose a start date for this. And we'll run it through, actually, let me go back through March. I'll go back through March first, and I'll do it through to today. And apply the filter. And nothing came up because we have rolled into a new monthly statement. So let me go back to the statement before, and we'll view this statement. This is a statement for the month of March, which will have all of the detail through March, okay? So let's go ahead and do that filter again, and we'll type in the company name. Choose the date, beginning of March. Went through April, let me go back to the end of March and apply filter. Okay. So what you see here is if we look at the company name Widget World here as a tag, everything now in this statement has been filtered for Widget World. And I can scroll to the bottom and look at their cost accrual for the month of March and see that, down there, see that they accrued a total of $110 of cost. What's nice about this too is for Widget World, it's going to track everything that we were accruing for them in terms of cloud objects. So you see the premium 400 instance here of basically a virtual machine. We see their bandwidth cost accrual. We can see their storage cost accrual. So everything that's associated with that particular account shows up. In addition, you can dive into additional levels of detail if you applied tags to look at department numbers that potentially had accrued cost, potentially even a project name, such as ERP deployment in this case, or a different project for EMA web refresh. So let's look for one of those projects, and maybe we'll do a sub-filter for just one project and see what that might have cost the company. And I'll show you a different search technique for doing that. So we'll clear the filter here. Let it repopulate. And I'm going to use the Control F function for Windows. If you're on a Mac, you can of course use Command F. But we're just going to search for a project that I called ERP refresh. And we'll see that it comes up right here. And I'll click to the left of it on the filter. And now it's going to pull up all costs associated with that one project. So again, this is a great way for both managing and tracking costs, or even aggregating costs and being able to provide bill back functionality within the company. The third and final source of information is the CFA data export. So if I scroll back up to the top and do a download, what will happen here is it'll actually download a copy of all of this data into a CSV file and drop it into a simple format. I've already downloaded this prior to our discussion, so I'm going to bring that up here. You'll see that it came out with all of these column headers as well as tags that are associated with the report. And I know this is just Excel, but there are many third-party tools that will make use of CSV files. In this case of Excel, you've probably heard of pivot tables before, but it's an easy way of taking all of this data and aggregating it and manipulating it to show what you want to see. In this case, I created a simple pivot table and grouped all of those costs by different project spends associated with different cost centers. So you can see here that these are 3 different cost centers in my company, and they each accrued a certain amount of expense. It's one way of looking at the data. If I wanted to look at it for a specific project, I could do that as well. If I scroll down, I took another slice of that data and said, well, how am I incurring costs for all of the different objects in the cloud? And in this case, you can see that I've accrued costs for bandwidth, block storage, these virtual machines, my disk images totaling 237. So it allows you to dive into, that particular understanding then of your cloud consumption. If I wanted to look at a particular billing department, I could sub-filter for that and look at the cost just for that particular department. So again, it's all about having the necessary data and transferring that into a, informational format. This is just one example of how to use the CFA export as a way of facilitating that analysis. That concludes the demo of CFA. I hope you found this interesting, and I'd certainly love to answer any questions you may have. Before doing so, let me turn the presentation back to Alan, as he has a special offer for those of you that attended today.
So Troy, thank you for previewing CFA. CFA allows you to quickly understand, monitor, manage, and allocate your multi-cloud costs, critical to any new or current cloud deployment. We would like to offer a free 14-day service trial for folks who have already migrated to the cloud. If you're planning to make the move to the cloud, we can help you too. The RDX team can provide a cloud assessment and assist with your cloud migration. Once complete, we can connect CFA to your cloud subscription as well. The process is simple. Just contact Troy. His email address is below, and we will also be sharing in a follow-up email containing the content of this webinar. Hi, Kelly. Any questions from the audience?
Yes, we did have a couple come in, and I'll begin with this one. Does CFA support the use of custom rate cards?
Yeah, great question. We actually do have the ability to import through an API connection with Azure and AWS to pull in on-demand pricing into CFA. We also have the ability to modify and work with our customers to develop a custom rate card that would mirror either their EA discounts they're getting from the cloud providers, or any other either deductions or additions they want to add to their cloud rate, depending on how they're using the subscription inside of the company. Good question, though.
Great. And the next question, how do I identify objects in my cloud that I'm paying for but not using?
So the first thing is Troy has demonstrated, it's critical to use tags. Tags gives you the immediate visibility into all objects and allows you to trace and track and understand the usage patterns of those items. However, through CFA, we can basically generate a report that allows you to isolate those untagged objects, and from there you can start the analysis, the forensic analysis to go after and try to correlate those with users. So we have a way to isolate those and then give the customer the ability to go in and pursue those.
Great. And the last question I have is, can I deploy CFA in both my Azure and my AWS account at the same time?
Absolutely. I think you saw that in the demonstration that Troy provided, that we've been running in Azure and AWS, not only in cloud subscriptions, but also across all the regions for which a customer could have deployments in. So absolutely, we are a multi-cloud provider, and our solution certainly follows that mantra. So absolutely, Azure and AWS, bring it on.
Great. And that is actually all of the questions that we have. So Troy and Alan, I wanted to thank you both very much today for a great presentation. And just as a reminder, we will be sending a copy of the recording and presentation out to everyone who attended today.
Great. Well, I just want to say thank you for joining us, and we look forward to helping you with your cloud journey, and have a great day.